warm welcome. This event has just been so outstanding. Such a pleasure to be with you. Just real quick, if you have questions, please use the chat function. We're very engaging. We love, really dialoguing with the audience. So I'm over the moon for us to chat with the Anneliese Olson. Before I share a bit of her highlight reel and give you a few more tidbits, I just have to tell you that Anneliese is the real deal. A super fantastic colleague, a genuine and amazing woman, a true career guide for myself and many of us. She's humble, she's curious, she's thoughtful, and she'll step into a business meeting with a suit and some Nikes. So I just adore Anneliese, and I'm just so excited. So today, team, we're talking about fostering learning, career development, and what it really means to belong in this multi-generational workforce. As mentioned, Anneliese is a VP here leading our largest market, and she started over 25 years ago as an intern. She has experience in Europe, Asia, US, so she just brings this diverse perspective to all the things we do, how we run our business, and how we manage healthy business relationships. She's a true advocate when it comes to sustainability and diversity. She's mentored and coached so many of us. And she's all about human potential and being a lifelong learner. She hails from San Francisco. And with that, we will get the topic kicked off. Welcome, Anneliese.
Thanks, Marah.
Yes, yes. So, listen, team, there are some unique challenges and I would say opportunities when we think about every age group from Gen Z to baby boomers. This is such a fun topic. When you pepper in hybrid work, we're all learning how to be social again. Now we're kind of trying to grow and do all the things. Sometimes you need a mind shift, but even tactical measures to unlock that human potential. So, first thing is first, let's start off with your role at HP. You've been here 25 years. How has the workforce landscape evolved over the course of your career?
It's been a fascinating journey, right? And many of the folks here I know are in the technology space or adjacent spaces. For me, it's really two big themes I would observe. So the first is actually women in technology and business. There is so much work to be done, but a lot of progress has been made. I think as we think about women are reinventing mindsets about how to work and how to collaborate. And I think, I started as an intern. I have worked at a company that has, 31% female in tech in these engineering leadership business roles. Our board is 58% women and those from ethnically and gender diverse groups, and 6 and 12 of the committee members are female. Our biggest go-to-markets, all of them in the world, there's 8, 4 of them are run by women. So we're 50-50 there with the long-term goal for the company to be 50-50. But as there have been hardships and challenges along the way, but I've been fortunate to work for a company that's been able to embrace that and learn and grow as they go. So the first one is that. The second is just the world of work has changed. You referenced hybrid, the pace, the new ways of working, and what that has evolved with now is this value around flexibility. And I think for women that comes into play even more so when they're carrying multiple duties and hats. Many have the burden of domestic chores and different kinds of things. And so there's a way now with this flexibility for people to advance their careers. And it's not just, here's this ladder just like this. It's the ability to rotate and learn and zigzag and pause, step back in, do different things. This new generation of work, I think, is shifting our mindsets of what we value about that relationship with work and how that work-life integration works. So to me, those two are the big themes for sure.
Yeah, I like what you said about kind of the women in this space who, to your point, we're like primary parent, we're doing all the things, plus wanting to excel in our career. And what's really interesting about that is I feel like those type of employees are the ones who've challenged us to rethink and reimagine, like, how do we still be successful, but make sure we give you the balance that you require. So yeah, that's perfect. So these days, many companies have up to 5 generations, I read, working together. What strategies have you found most effective in fostering collaboration, mutual understanding amongst the different generations?
Well, I mean, this is a really important question, right? And really, as we look at the landscape, I think even Harvard Business Review just came out with 6 generations as Gen Alpha is starting to get internships, this summer. But it's really about validating people where they are in their career, where they are in their life stages. And so there's really kind of 3 buckets I would say that I've both been part of in constructing or what we do in at HP. The first one is really thinking about mentoring and sponsorship, what people need out of that. And two examples, we started a Catalyst program in 2017 where early career women were partnered with more senior leaders in the company, and how they would get access to some of those conversations as well as sharing what they know. And even, quite frankly, it turned into some reverse mentoring across generations as well. In North America, in 2023, we knew and could hear from the workforce that people were really interested, particularly Gen Z and millennials, around learning and career growth. So we set up mentoring circles. We had 200 people raise their hand. We had 100 pairs. We gave them a facilitation guide and kind of some structure to have conversations monthly and quarterly, and got a lot of good feedback about that. So mentoring and sponsorship is one. The other is training, quite frankly, training programs that foster empathy, help employees communicate more effectively with each other. We're a global company too, so we have that dynamic around the world in terms of layers of culture. And we know companies that have diverse teams are 12% more productive. They're generating more profits. Inclusion drives 30% better performance out of what people are doing. So when those people can come and deliver and have an environment where those courageous conversations can happen, I think are really important. And as you know, I mean, HP started business resource groups in 1978. This is not a new trendy thing. This is, you listen to your employees, you provide resources and groups that they can feel included and identify with. And we can add more over time, which we've done, right? Whether it's, young employee networks, veterans, different things. And so those programs, I think, are really, structurally important. And then the third one is really this broader program of how do you provide for employees at all life stages? You understand how this workforce is going to operate. And when you understand people's life stages, those programs should reflect that as well, whether it's health benefits. We recently have introduced menopause and perimenopause programs at HP.
Thank goodness. Yep.
I happen to fit in that category. We're looking at returnships where women and men, quite frankly, re-entering the workforce and coming and bringing expertise at different stages. And 21% of our workforce are over 50. 60% of our execs are over 50. So as you think of these different pieces, how do you structurally provide, mentoring, sponsor, career development programs, and then meet people where they are in those life stages is really important for people to be excited to come to work every day.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of colleagues right now are dealing with aging parents, and that's a whole nother chapter where they need a different type of support. So learning that is really critical. I also liked what you said about training. Funny but not, recently when I was reviewing, some offerings we have this plethora at HP. I gravitated to emotional intelligence. Yep, we need that. Relationship building. Yep, we need that. It was some of the more softer skills, not the hardcore things, because I think training, there is a way we kind of need to reskill ourselves in these areas.
Yeah, that what and that how are really most important, right, for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your opinion, what are some common misconceptions, stereotypes that exist about the different generations?
Oh boy, this could be a whole subject on itself. I think, it's so great because when people can come with a lens of, every person has a valuable, unique perspective to add. And if we can ground ourselves kind of both in humanity and in the truth of, resisting or making sure we resist stereotypes and stay in that truth, I think it's really, really valuable. There's a few, right? When people talk about Gen Z, there's a lack of discipline or work ethic, when in fact research shows, Gen Z wants to learn. They also want timely feedback and when the thing happens, and also want to collaborate timely in those things. So how can you have empathetic feedback, having it be timely, and there's no question about discipline or work ethic. I think millennials, there's a lot of views like, oh, millennials, they're just a bunch of job hoppers, right? They just
Mhm.
they can't stick. Actually, research shows that they're just as likely to stick with an employer as their older counterparts, right? In different places. And so that is in fact a stereotype. For Gen Z, there a lot of things I think come back, especially compared to older generations. Do they really have what it takes, this X factor to drive transformational change? When in fact, if you go read the New York Times and the Washington Post, there's a ton of articles where a lot of the most visionary leaders, whether it's in the government, whether it's in business, whether it's influencing culture, are in Gen X. And so they do have the X factor or whatever that is. And then baby boomers, right? This is a group that gets stereotyped like crazy. And I think, people are say, oh, baby boomers, you're not willing to embrace new technology. Um, Also not true. Our research shows, and has been validated with other external research, 50% of baby boomer employers, per a Microsoft survey, have said they had the skills to meet the demands of AI. And Gen Z answers that question 65%. So it's not that big of a spread in terms of being ready for the future and wanting to learn. And people can learn at any age. You're never too old to learn. And when we even hire, we really look for those attributes. So to me, that's not
Mhm.
a generational thing or a stereotype. It's how can you be curious and continue to be a lifelong learner? And that's what we really, kind of do to bust the stereotypes. But I don't know, you probably have an observation or two as we've had these conversations as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny as you were talking, it's like you're right. Certain styles and characteristics they transcend, cultures and ages. I think one of the common mistakes we all make is falling into our stereotype.
Mhm.
I think some of my experiences will be like a super talented younger individual going for an interview, and they'll start kick off the interview with, "I know I'm, new or I'm not as experienced." I'm like, step into who you are. You're one of one for a reason. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Own it.
absolutely.
Own it. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you see the role of inclusive leadership evolving to accommodate the changing workforce dynamics? What specific challenges do you foresee with these demographics? And then just, yeah, any thoughts around that?
EQ, emotional intelligence, is growing
Yep.
absolutely in terms of it's being demanded. It's a growing inclusion. The importance of inclusion is growing in the workplace. And so you've got 17 million Gen Z employees now, a third of the workforce by 2032, and people want to feel connected and heard and understood, which means you have to have EQ in your organization if you want to be a leader or manager of people or other things. And so I'm a believer you lead at all levels. You don't need a title to do that, right? We can
Mhm.
all lead, but it's our role then collectively to be more inclusive. And I think Gen Z, some of our HP Work Relationship Index research, this is a big project and study we've shared externally. You can take a look. Gen Z says they're only seeing 45% of their managers and leaders displaying or meeting expectations around what they want EQ to look like or empathy to look like, even though 70% of senior leaders agree that EQ is very important. So there's a gap in terms of how people experience this, how people are showing up to be more empathetic and inclusive. And it becomes a really important piece to engagement because, again, as I said before, inclusive environments deliver better performance. When employees are engaged, they're delivering, more. Think about the time when you're so into what you're doing, you forget what time it is. We want people to feel that way. And again, across generations, EQ will be the key ingredient for leaders of the future.
Yeah, EQ is one where I think a lot of leaders felt strong, and I think the pandemic shifted how we had to grow as people. We all change,
Mhm.
which we should every 4 years, by the way. We should all grow and change. Um, but I find the EQ people, all of us, me included, having to relearn how to engage with that and be super mindful, intentional, and present with people. Because sometimes people just want to vent or they just need to talk through something.
Mm.
And, you have to allow that space, especially in the business world. I feel like
Mm.
even more so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. So, great leaders all around us, regardless, you just mentioned title. You don't need a title. What qualities do you think make a great leader?
I think there's four things. So the first one we just talked a little bit about is empathy, right?
Yep.
You have to have the ability to connect to people, have a pulse on what's going on around you, and be that listener so that empathy kind of comes through. The second is transparency. We're in a world now, the amount of data that's around, what can you share and do and build with your colleagues? Or if you're a leader of a team, how do you give context about why? It isn't just, do these reports, do this, do that. It's why does this matter? What's going on around us? Where is our strategy? Okay, I can't share all about what's happening here, and here, but let me tell you what I can and kind of paint this picture. So that transparency is really important. The third one is collaboration. No matter what industry you work in, you're collaborating with people internal and externally in your companies. And again, this is something where women often can figure out how to navigate and add a lot of value in your workforce, whatever that culture looks like, again, whatever industry. And the fourth one is around adaptability, or we talked flexibility, but adapting is an interesting one because adapting means that you are constantly learning. Adapting means a strategy can change. You can pivot. You can be very tied and committed to an idea, but when new information comes or leadership changes or a business direction might change, you can adapt and figure out what's next. You could even have a job loss or other things. What is going to be next in terms of how you plan that out? And, we're going to live 100-year lives now. And so there's so many chapters to our work and our careers. We
Yep.
need to enjoy and learn while we're doing that. And that adaptability, I think, is so key, that, when you're curious and adaptable, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, yeah, and coachable. I feel like coachable is another one.
That's a fifth one. That's good as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Adaptable. It's one of those we all like to think, oh, I'm adaptable, but when change happens, you're like, oh my goodness, like this has totally thrown
Exactly.
me left. So yeah,
Exactly.
I really like that. So we do have a question from the audience, back to stereotypes. How can we overcome and change perceptions when it comes to a
Mhm.
stereotype that we all kind of give one another?
Yeah. I think it does come back to this empathy and the ability to reach and connect at an individual level, because we all have examples where people don't fit stereotypes in our own lives. And
Mm,
so how do we listen? How do we ask questions? How do we take it upon ourselves, to deal with that? How do we take it upon ourselves to call each other out on behavior when you are making a stereotype? I've even done it in a meeting, where I've been someplace and maybe I've said something or thought something and I said, well, wait, that's not fair. That can't be true. Or,
yeah. Mhm.
because I don't like if I get stuck in, or I get classified as a stereotype. So, listening, connecting at an individual level, and holding people accountable to those courageous conversations so that we can openly challenge them, those stereotypes, and keep learning.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.